The Oklahoma State Cowboys, 1 year removed off of a sole victory in the win column, a dominant transfer portal class, a new sheriff is in Stillwater. Is it back to the glory days of the peak of the Mike Gundy era, or is it the building blocks that could potentially get you back to the glory days? It's not going to be a 1 year transformation. We both know that. But let's review. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the State of the Program series as part of the Southern Sports Scene. Make sure y'all do us a favor. Hit the like, share, subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short on the Southern Sports Scene. Every live show brought to you by our good friends at Frost Buddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com, use that promo code SSS15 and get 15% off your first purchase. Thank you to our friends at Chike Nutrition. 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, and 1 gram of sugar in every healthy, hearty cup of Chike Nutrition iced coffee. Click the link below. Get yourself 10% off. And as always, our videos are always over at the Buzzer app. Download the app today to get yourself started and see if you can become a verified creator today. Got Cody Stovall with us from Locked On Oklahoma State. Cody, good to see you, my friend. Finally getting a chance to meet. How are you this fine morning, good sir?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Optimism is the word of the day in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You mentioned it. We're going to have an offensive fireworks display that everybody in the country should be able to get eyes on. I say this, you don't have to be a fan of Oklahoma State. You don't even have to be a fan of the Big 12. If you just like football and you like to see the ball cross the end zone a bunch of times, Oklahoma State is going to be a team you're going to want to keep eyes on this year. It's pretty exciting, right? We went from I'm a man, I'm 40, who's hunting rattlesnakes, to the angry elf who's out here shooting armadillos. Dude, it feels like, you're right, we're kind of getting back into the prime heyday of Mike Gundy. There's a lot of commonality, I think, with Eric Morris. Right? One of the funnest conversations in the beginning of his tenure here was he was sleeping on an air mattress, going over film like crazy. That's the same kind of stuff Mike Gundy was doing in 2005. It's about that grind. And I think some of it is coming up from the FCS level. You have to recruit in a fairly unique way, but that's where Eric Morris comes into play here, buddy. At that level, he was the guy who went and found Cam Ward. He was the guy that told Mike Leach that they needed to give Baker Mayfield a scholarship because nobody else was. He's the guy who not only revitalized the career of Chandler Morris, but he also did the same thing for John Mateer. And you could make the argument that John Mateer has regressed since leaving the tutelage of Eric Morris. Now you have Drew Mestemaker, who's the prototypical 6'4", 220-pound quarterback that does have some mobility. And year 3 in the system, man. Everyone's talking about the jump from the G6 to the Big 12. It is a real thing. Like, we're not pretending that it's not going to be, some sort of an issue. But we're just glossing over the fact that he's 3 years into this system now. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, and the best point, North Texas had a lot of talent. Eric Morris identified 20 North Texas players that were good enough to come start in the Power 4 level. 18 of those 20 came with him to Oklahoma State. I think the biggest benefit that you're going to see this year is Drew Mestemaker. He didn't have a 6'5", 230-pound wide receiver that runs a 3.9 40 in Justin Bowick coming over from Illinois. He didn't have that at North Texas. He didn't have Chris Barnes, who's almost top Tyreek Hill level track speed, that had over 600 yards last year at Wake Forest. He didn't have that at his disposal on a regular basis at North Texas either. Plus, you got to factor into the tight end room. He goes out and gets Jacob Sexton, who has 997 snaps at OU, who should be a starting tackle this year for Oklahoma State. He went out and got 6'7", 330-pound Ashton Lepo, who started 12 games last year for Michigan State. We kind of narrowed down the issues, and I think we addressed those issues, and now we're about to put on an epic offensive display.
Cody, I have, and reviewing the entirety of the Big 12, I have not seen a wide receiver room that is as deep as what Oklahoma State has this year. You've already mentioned a few of the names throughout this video already. You talk about Justin Bowick, who is a freak athlete coming from Illinois. You talk about Chris Barnes, who you say is Tyreek Hill-like. You talk about guys like Wyatt Young, who is the leading receiver this past year. Absolutely the most underrated receiver and most underappreciated receiver in college football. I don't know why people don't have him higher up as a top 10 wide receiver, but I mean, it's also because he's not a household name yet as we speak. You look at other guys. Israel Polk, who I was really impressed with coming from Akron. Deep ball threat, love his speed. Going to be a solid rotational guy. Miles Coleman was a guy that popped off in games last year. Bit undersized at 5'6", 160. I expect him to play a big role in the kick return game. But you talk about how the quarterback position has faltered lately in Stillwater. There's been a lot of hype. There's obviously the genius of what Gundy did at the quarterback position, but obviously things fizzled out after you have a guy like Spencer Sanders that leaves to go take a backup position at Ole Miss, which made no sense to me. You have all of that went down, and then you went, we're on 3 or 4 seasons. You don't really have an answer at quarterback. Now you bring in arguably a top 10 caliber quarterback in college football in Drew Mestemaker. The story that he has, walk on at North Texas, was a guy that was playing free safety and I believe running back.
Punter. Free safety and punter.
He was all district as a DB. He had a higher district placing as a freaking punter. The fact that you have all of that, you come into North Texas, you start 5th on the depth chart, you climb all the way up to being Chandler Morris's backup, and you pop off in your first full year as a starter. Just talk to me about the development of a guy like Drew Mestemaker and the offense that you've already mentioned. I've been following Eric Morris since he was at UIW back in 2021. You talk about the way that UIW's offense has been and the type of talent that has come through Incarnate Word. Eric Morris, who was the head coach there. G.J. Kinney, who followed suit. He's now at Texas State. There's just been so much talent that has come through the state of Texas. Now you bring it to Stillwater. Just talk to me about that and the development of a guy like Mestemaker and what you're excited to bring in an offense that last year had 14 or fewer points in 7 of 12 games last year.
Well, I think there's something to be said for any football players in the youth category out there to just simply preparing yourself constantly, right? While he was playing punter, while he was playing free safety, he was a film junkie in the quarterback room, right? He did play like the B team quarterback role, but I think that cerebral based knowledge that he has, he was able to take that at North Texas and then implement it fairly quickly into this Eric Moore system, right? One of the things that I think does not get mentioned enough is if you talk to the Wyatt Youngs and the Miles Coleman of the world, they'll tell you that he was passing Chandler Morris by halfway through that freshman season. There's players that thought he should have played over Chandler Morris the last 5 or 6 games of the year. So his transformation, I think, has been very, very quickly put together. And I think it's the mental side of the game that has allowed him to hit the ground running. I also think the developmental aspects, when you hear Eric Morris and Sean Brophy, the offensive coordinator, when you hear them talk about Drew Mestemaker this year, they literally call him a coach. They call him a coach on the field. He has gotten to the point now where he can run his own 2-minute offenses. He can run his own 4-minute offenses. He can call his own audibles. He can do his own shifts. Is Eric Morris and Sean Brophy going to, tell him in the headset what they think is likely to be the best case scenario? For sure. But they trust Drew Mestemaker now to make those decisions, to make those calls, to make those switches. Is he, Peyton Manning yet where he can tell receivers to get the heck on and off the field? I don't know, but probably. The team has a ton of faith in him. And I tell you, the funnest thing out of all of this conversation is the off-field stuff. Like every year, every team in the country and all of us that yell into microphones for a living, we talk about the cohesion in the locker room and, how they're getting along together and it's going to show out on the football field. It's a lot of talk. We all talk about it, but not very many teams do it, right? Like not very many. When you clock out and you get out of the facilities, yeah, you might go to your dorm or your apartment or whatever with a couple roommates and play some games, but it's not like it used to be, right? When I was there, you would have 15, 25 individuals from the team together all the time on a fairly regular basis. We were hunting, mudding, fishing, playing water pong. We were doing a bunch of different things together that they don't do a lot of now. This North Texas transfer unit has brought that kind of high school feel to Oklahoma State. And the off-field stuff that you're hearing is dramatically different than what we've heard the last handful of years. And I think that also goes into the development of Drew Messemaker. You know, he has done some things that have provided confidence for the defense. And I think that may be the biggest factor here. The defensive players are saying, we can fly around, we can play more aggressive, we can take more chances, we can be a little bit more crazy and throw our bodies around with reckless abandon, because now if we make a mistake, it doesn't matter because number 17 can cancel it in 15 seconds. That should be the biggest difference that we see on the field on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to do more. They're going to take more chances, play more aggressively, do more stunts, more twists, more crazy blitzes, because Drew Messemaker and this offense is good enough to cancel out any mistakes.
I think that showed a lot last year with North Texas. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, I will be honest. Initially, I am a little skeptical of Skylar Cassidy. And look, I'm not saying that he's been a bad coordinator. I think when you look at the statistical side, it'll say one thing. This is a team that last year, right around below average around college football when it came to total defense, but top 10 pass defense in college football, top 10 in creating turnovers, top 10 in fumbles recovered. They know how to create big turnovers, and that's what leads to points being put on the board. I think that you would like to see a little bit more consistency from this team and more of a big game type of atmosphere where they show up, because I look at games like South Florida. I look at games where they got down early against Tulane. That obviously causes some concern. I even look at that game that they in the bowl game against San Diego State. San Diego State's offense was not very good this year. You're talking about a mid-tier offense that they relied on the number one defense in college football. That North Texas offense put 49 on them, but you also have to throw that in there and say, hey, man, this was still a team that gave up 47 to an offense that really had no business putting up 47 points. So what have you seen throughout practice, heard from practice? What is your overall opinion of Skylar Cassidy in this offense? Because I've listened to him in his interviews. Really, really phenomenal sounding guy, a guy that is so energetic. He just seems to bring a different dynamic compared to what you had the last couple of years with some lazy hires. I thought Ty Grantham last year was a really bad hire for you.
Yeah, dude, I must admit I was guilty of falling into that, SEC style Todd Grantham system. I was excited. I thought he was going to bring a hard-nosed, super physical, crazy aggressive system to Oklahoma State, and it didn't happen. And then to make matters worse, it was very evident why Oklahoma State got better the last 5 or 6 games of the season. It's because all of the backups were playing. Right. We were playing the players that were getting paid the most amount of money that were not being beneficial to Oklahoma State University or the team. And that's in large part, I think, probably due to some of the Todd Granthams of the world that were on campus last year. This is entirely different, primarily because we were able to bring 90% of the staff and the general manager. Now, that's huge. Getting Raj Murdy to come with Eric Morris and the staff, I think, may be the biggest component. Now, back to defense. Everywhere Skylar Cassidy has gone, there's massive improvements, right? This previous year at North Texas, he improved them by 90 yards a game in passing and over 100 yards a game total in defensive numbers. So teams immediately were not putting up as many yards as they were previously under his tutelage. You mentioned all of the turnovers, top 10, top 5 in multiple categories when it comes to takeaways and turnover margins. So they've been the epitome of bend but don't break, right? Not great between the 20s, but really good in the 20s in the red zone on creating those havoc situations. I think this year you're going to see something entirely different from Skylar Cassidy. Like, he comes from that 3-3-5 kind of tree, and that's what he's been utilizing for most of his career, Abilene Christian, Sam Houston, and North Texas. But I think part of the component that has been missing for him has been the NIL. has been the cachet of the Big 12. That's why you make this move, right? If you're a defensive coordinator and you're playing to your personnel, that's probably why he was playing a lot of 3-3-5 for the last handful of years, because you're going to get an overabundance of skill players, but you're not going to get a bunch of big dudes down low. So it's hard to have a four-man front. It's hard to experiment with multiple linebacker looks. I think this year you are going to see some of those wrinkles. I think this is the time where Skylar Cassidy has said, you know what? I've always wanted to change the defense a little bit. I've always wanted to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more aggressive, but I just didn't have the horses in the stable to do it. The North Texas transfers are going to be a big deal because you've got at least one at every single level on the defense. So just from teaching the schematics and the playbook and all of that, that's going to be massively beneficial. Just like we talked about the evolution for Drew Mestemaker and the fact that he didn't have the Justin Bowiks and the Chris Barnes and the Israel Pokes of the world up and down the roster at North Texas. You got to have the same conversation on defense. You go out and get a Nye White from Penn State that could play defensive end. He could also play defensive tackle. You go out and get Jerry Lawson to be a big body beast down low as a defensive tackle that had offers from the SEC and the Big Ten before coming to Oklahoma State out of Louisville. We go out and get James Williams from Florida State. Did he do a ton at Florida State last year? Not necessarily, but the year prior to that at Nebraska, he was a problem. If he can get back to that Nebraska form of himself, it's going to be an issue for other Big 12 teams. We do have a couple of returning guys on the defensive line. You've got Jaleel Johnson, who last year was tabbed as our best defensive line NFL prospect. Unfortunately, he got injured, and we didn't really get to see him all year. This is going to be a massive season for him. You've got another returning Oklahoma dude that has been here with Jaleel Johnson for 5 years, and Deshaun Brown. Those guys have a lot to prove. And then the back end of the linebackers, buddy. That may be the creme de la creme of this Oklahoma State defense. We went out in the transfer portal. Of course, you got Ethan Wisłowski, put up 113 tackles last year. He's like a Malcolm Rodriguez style of guy that'll fit perfectly in Stillwater. You got to have him. PFF's highest graded returning linebacker in America is Ethan Wisłowski. So you got to put somebody next to him, right? So all we did is go out and get UCLA's Isaiah Chisholm, who had 84 tackles last year and 173 tackles the last 2 years at UCLA. If you go look at the message boards, UCLA fans were flipping out about him leaving UCLA to come to Oklahoma State. And guess what? He's not even going to start. We bring in a guy like that with those kind of numbers, with that kind of athleticism, size, skill, speed, understanding of the game at the Big Ten level, and he gets passed up by Tate Romney, who's been injured the last 2.5 years at Arizona State, hasn't even really got to see the field in any capacity. But now is his time. Now he's fully healthy. Now he passes Isaiah Chisholm. And guess what? They're backups. Next to Isaiah Chisholm, you got Trip White, who played in 13 games at Ole Miss. Like, this is a talent upgrade for Skylar Cassidy that he never had access to at North Texas. Even Raj Murdy had come out and said they had the lowest budget in the American Conference last year at North Texas. And they did what they did. Now you're going to give him almost $24 million? I have faith that if they can do it with $2 million, they're going to do it with $24 million too.
Talk to me about both sides of the line of scrimmage. I know you briefly mentioned a little bit about your defensive line. This was one of the worst offensive lines in the Big 12 this past season. Gave up a lot of sacks. I know you're shaking your head. You know damn well what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but again, it's that same. You got to look at it 2 halves of the year. The first half of the year, we were horrendous. The last 5 games were all very, very close. The last 3 games, we probably should have won them. And that was all because we shuffled around the offensive line. We shuffled around the defense. I'm telling you, man, we let a bunch of backups close the last 5 games of the year, and we got significantly better, including the offensive line. The first half of the year, we couldn't do anything. Like, Zane Flores had no opportunities to do anything. The latter half of the year, the offensive line was the most improved group. The downside is we only get a couple of those guys back. So it's a rejuvenated group. You're right. I did talk about the defensive line quite a bit. I may have left off the potential best defensive lineman, which is going to be Malik Charles. Has an NFL pedigree. His dad played in the NFL for 11 years, but he didn't start playing football until his freshman year of college. First time he picked up a football was his freshman year of college. Now he's, 4 years into this ordeal? Now he's 300 pounds. He's going to be a problem, right? He's always had the capabilities, but I think you'll be able to see it on display this year. The other side of the offensive line, I mentioned Ashton Lepo from Michigan State. I mentioned, I know words are hard for me, Jacob Sexton from OU. But the biggest component might be the center, Tyler Mercer, that came over from KU, because 2 years ago, he was with Mestemaker and Morris at North Texas, right? So he's at North Texas, goes to Kansas, understands the lay of the land of the Big 12. He got hurt a few games into the season, so, he gets that extra year of eligibility back, comes to Oklahoma State. The continuity, the cohesiveness, the understanding, if you have a center and a quarterback that are one, that's magical, right? Because the center does a lot for the quarterback pre-snap. The center is the dude that helps with the identification of the linebackers and the shifts and the blitzes and the protections. If you don't have a competent center, your quarterback's going to struggle. We have a center that will be able to command the game, command the offense, and help Drew Mestemaker in a multitude of ways that he didn't even have access to last year at North Texas. We've got, a couple dudes that I think could factor in the mix, like Sean Torgerson, came over from Portland State, 6'4", 305 pounds. He led Portland State in snaps. Suck that in. An offensive lineman led a team in snaps. That doesn't happen unless you're just the best player on the team. So they want to make sure that you're on the field for every field goal, PAT, kickoff. It didn't matter. He had to be on the field because he was the best player at Portland State. Now he's at Oklahoma State. You're hearing a lot of great things about him. Joseph Hansen coming over from Coastal Carolina. But back in the day, Coastal Carolina was a power. I don't know what's happened in the last 2 years, but at one point in time, everybody in the country was trying to steal all the Coastal Carolina players. And then you got Louis Canepa, who was one of the top prospects last year in the portal, but he got injured. We didn't get to see him a lot. You have returning guy from Stillwater America, Jacoby Sanders, who can absolutely move mountains in the weight room. He started quite a bit of games last year, and he's a backup now. So a lot of the most heralded individuals we had coming into the season have been passed up. I'll give you another one. Donovan Green, 5-star All-American that started as a freshman at Texas A&M.
Yes. It
didn't, after his freshman year at A&M, it kind of went downhill. So he goes to LSU. LSU put some pounds on him. They convert him to even more to a blocking style tight end, comes to Oklahoma State, and he gets passed up by not only one guy, but two guys. Oscar Hammond, who came from North Texas 2 years ago, and Carson Cobb, who is a linebacker converted to tight end from Oregon State. Like, that's the beauty of this. Eric Morris finds players that nobody else in the country is even looking at. Nobody was interested in Cam Ward unless he wanted to play running back or wide receiver. Eric Morris was the only college coach that was like, hold my beer, watch what I can do with this one. That seems to be synonymous with Eric Morris. He's finding guys that have tons of snaps. That's the other big thing. If anybody in the country can replicate the Indiana model, it is Oklahoma State. Right? I do know that Alex Goulash brought some guys with him to Auburn, but not as many. And he damn sure didn't bring 90% of his staff with him. And he absolutely didn't bring the GM with him. So everything that Curt Cignetti did, bringing 20 JMU guys over, and they immediately won 11 games. Am I saying we're going to win 11 games? Not necessarily. No, I don't think we will. But if there's a model to follow, it is us. And if there's somebody in the country that is a carbon copy of Fernando Mendoza, not only physically as a body type, but the way that they throw the ball, the way that they mentally view the game, it is, again, Drew Mestemaker.
He's not coming out this year in 2027. You will not ever convince me that he's coming out in 27. I don't think he leaves Oklahoma State after 1 year. I think he comes back.
It depends on how it goes. But if he puts up 3,800 yards, touchdowns,
if he puts up stupid freaking numbers like like people expect him to, sure, I can see that. But I also see a scenario where, look, NIL is very enticing. Look at what you're building. Maybe you take the next step forward. I look at this schedule, and this is where we'll kind of wrap up here.
Well, you're saying that if he does come back for another year of college, it will be in Stillwater.
Yes.
Right? Is that what you're saying? Yes, I agree. Because he just turned down.
He ain't leaving. Unless Eric Morris leaves to go get a bigger head coaching job in the SEC or wherever else where the resources are going to be more. And look, I know that there's more money that's going to be poured into Stillwater because of what you brought in from this past season. But listen, the resources in compared to the major two conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC, they outweigh what the Big 12 and the ACC are doing at this moment in time. But
I agree.
At this point in time, I don't see Mestemaker leaving Oklahoma State for the time being.
Well, you mentioned the money factor, right? He turned down Michigan and Oregon and Indiana, and I think it was even Alabama. He's already turned down way more money than we can pay him. Like, why do you think we came up with $7.5 million for our quarterback? It's because we didn't have Oregon and Michigan money. So we had to get at least kind of close. So I agree with you. If he was going to do it, it would have been when teams like Oregon and Michigan are offering the bag. He didn't do that. He chose Oklahoma State. Furthermore, Eric Morris has said it himself. He's a diehard, hardcore, small town, West Texas, Big 12 guy. Right. I firmly believe the only place ever that Eric Morris would leave Stillwater for would be Lubbock, Texas. So ironically enough, we need Joey McGuire and Tech to keep being good, because the longer he stays in Stillwater, the longer his family gets deep into the community and his kids are in the school. If Texas Tech is having a coaching search 9 years from now, I don't think Eric Morris would leave. But if they have a coaching search 3 years from now, yeah, I think we could lose Morris to Texas Tech. So Joey McGuire needs to keep doing his darn thing.
Big season ahead for the Cowboys this year. I have them predicted right now. Ceiling is very high for me. I see a 10-2 season for them. Floor would be 6-6, but bowl eligibility is a hell of a lot better than being just a one-win program. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State, joining us as part of our State of the Program series. Get on over, subscribe to Locked On Oklahoma State. They just hit over 10,000 subscribers not too long ago. Cody, appreciate the conversation, my friend. Good that we can finally chat. And hopefully we'll see you in maybe 2 months whenever I head up to Boone Pickens for homecoming game. Really excited to get down. If you haven't heard, ladies and gentlemen, the Southern sports scene is going on the road to Stillwater, Oklahoma in 2 months for homecoming as Deion Sanders and company. I cannot wait to absolutely get my hands on a ticket to get to Boone Pickens and watch some great freaking Big 12 football. Cody, appreciate your time, brother. Have a great rest of the week.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother, man.